Awesome. Great. So welcome everyone. Interview time. Triv, feet, Bosswoman. And so I want to thank you so much, Triv, for coming in and allowing us to ask you 95 questions and talk about all things fitness, nutrition, food, nutrition, food, same thing, training, and just, I guess, all around getting a different perspective and a different insight as well. So I've talked you up a fair bit to these ladies, just that you give, and I've always told you this, how much you give, like just a logical, more made sense kind of version of how to look at things, and it's just a different way. And the way that you simplify things, and just like your bits of wisdom and knowledge that I really want to share with these ladies as well, because I think they'll learn so much from hearing that. And what else did I want to say? We'll just get straight into it, and then if everyone can just mute, and then hopefully we'll have some time for some Q&A at the end as well. So did you want to intro yourself a little bit and just give like a little bit of a background on yourself?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I've been in the industry now for just over 10 years now. And I actually started educating myself before I became a personal trainer. I was a mechanical engineer, and I progressively got more obsessed with health and fitness and training and whatnot for myself. And mainly because the basic stuff wasn't working for me at the time. So I, by default learnt more and more and studied and researched, and it got to the point where I was really passionate about things, so I changed careers. And fast forward 10 years, it's gone by very quickly. I've been able to work with a lot of people over time, and ultimately it's like with anything, like experience is what trumps theory and everything. You can study all you want, but you need actual clients and people to work with to learn from. And my approach 10 years ago is completely different to what it is today, based on all of this. So mainly one-on-one personal training when the gyms are open, and I still do some one-on-one now, home visits, but also online coaching as well.
Yeah. So Amber, she runs a gym. So she's got her own gym in a suburb starting with W, I think. Oh, Wangaratta. Yeah.
Okay.
Is it Wangaratta? Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Leslie's been doing PT with me for quite some time, but she come from like competitive background of dragon boating.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a couple others that also run their own fitness businesses as well that aren't on right now. But everyone's in the mood for some body and food talk. Based on our last group call. So, and funnily enough as well, I've been telling people I know you for 12 years. And I've been in the fitness industry for 15, and I've just recently had to rework that out. And one of my other friends was like, "You weren't a personal trainer then." And I was like, and then you just confirmed it again. Right. It must have been, I must know you then for 8-9 years.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah.
During one of the bios.
Like 12.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, cool. So let's get rolling. Hey, Kira, I'll just get you to mute as you jump on. Awesome. Thank you. So the first thing I would love to talk about is like the simplicity of getting body results.
Yep.
And it's really, I almost went to do a live stream earlier today and titled it, at what point did you believe that it was easy to get body results and that it could happen just like that without having to get your hands dirty or put in the hard yards? And it's a couple of conversations I had with a client this week and then with another client last week. And it just sort of got me thinking, because I was also like that at one point. It's like, surely it's not that hard. Like, surely it would be easy. And especially because you see so many, 10-week transformations, 12-week transformations. You can lose 10 kilos in 10 days. Not quite that, but like versions of that. But then, have us thinking how easy it can be. So I guess, can we talk a little bit about, what goes into getting body results?
Well, first and foremost, I know you've heard me harp on about this several times, but consistency is like my most important thing for people.
Yeah.
So you'll get better results being like following a plan that's 80% good 100% of the time, than following a plan that's really great, like absolutely spot on 70% of the time. And that's where I see most people go wrong. unfortunately. And I think obviously, like, everything I speak to you about, I speak from experience, firsthand experience. So I've done that before, and then I got over obsessed with things as well. I went too far on the other side. So
Can relate.
yeah, I mean, the cortisol and the stress component is probably what, held me back there. Like, I was low carb every day of the week. I was way too good, way too strict, and I was like the hardest worker in the gym, really, and didn't make any changes whatsoever. And it took time for me to understand, like, how you just have to do the basic things really well and build up. So de-stress, refeed the body, get the body happier and healthier and stronger. And I mean, it's a lot easier to tell a guy, listen, we need to focus on building more muscle mass and eating more nutrients. Because when you pick up your nutrients with more calories, you fix any deficiencies you have, you fix any hormonal imbalances you have, all by default. So, I've flipped people's blood markers on, like, blood work before, purely by making them eat more.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Not
it's
even,
quite interesting because, like, what kind of percent of people would you say that come to you that are under eating? Because I know in my experience, like 95% of women that come to me are literally under eating.
yeah, I just got off the phone with someone. It was exactly that. She trains like 6 times a week. And she wants to lose weight. She's not in a position, like, she's got, like I said to her, I'm like, where would we go from here? Tell me, if I were to reduce the calories, what would I do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're spot on. That percentage is very accurate, 95%, quite comfortably.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's from what I've seen over the years, it's obviously influenced heavily by social media and everything that's advertised. So everyone's a clean eater these days. Everyone's dieting all the time, which is not necessary.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, nobody understands how much, or the importance of what I call an off season. And, like, I'm a bodybuilder, so I have an off season and a prep phase, right? Like, consistently, I compete on average once a year. But I still tell people you need an off season. You need a time to build up your metabolic rate. So I might not tell them we're going to build muscle now. I might tell them we're going to push calories up to build up your metabolic rate, so that when we do diet down, you've got a lot of room to move.
Yeah.
Because it's a tool. It's a huge tool to be able to remove small amounts of calories over a 12 to 16 week period, and it negatively influence your health or your hormones.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the first time I ever, some trainer, I won't mention their name, but it was like out in Geelong, and I went and trained with them, and I was like, I want a 6-pack and abs. And I remember she took me right down to 800 calories, and I was the most angry motherfucker ever when I got there. And I was like, I am miserable. And then just like, let's get rid, like, let's build as much muscle as possible.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a current business model right now. They offer 8-week challenges at F45, and they get results because they put everyone on starvation calories, right? And once they hit those transformations, they take the photos, and then you don't hear about those people anymore.
Yeah.
So a successful client or transformation to me is after the 12-week. Let's just call it 12-week diet, right?
Yeah.
I want to see what they look like 24 weeks.
Yeah.
Whether they've maintained that and are still happy and healthy, or whether they've had a huge rebound and look even worse than when they started.
Yeah. And that's something that I go on a lot about with clients. It's like, if it's not something that you would be happy to do long term,
Correct. Yeah.
then, even if you did a short term thing, and that's something we'll come to as well, like short game versus long game. But it's about, like, that short term game, like, goal, but having a long term plan for it, as opposed to it. And nobody thinks about the longer term goal. They just think about, 12 weeks and I'll lose this. And then it's like, I can rest and then go back to whatever it is that I want to.
Yeah.
Something you mentioned, which I think is going to be really important for my crew, is just around, like, increasing your metabolic rate, and, like, maybe byproducts of having a slower metabolic rate, why it's important to increase it, and also why carbohydrates are not the devil. That's something I really want to go into, because I have that conversation a lot with this crew, but, like, with many crews. And let's just go into that. So can we talk about metabolic rate first?
All right, yeah, cool. Because there were several topics there like I'd like to touch on really.
Oh, I could
Um,
talk to you for 10 hours, so I'm just trying to streamline it.
well, yeah, slow metabolic rate basically means that your body turns over nutrients for energy slowly because your body thinks it's in starvation, right? So you're chronically under eating and overtraining, for example. That's just one of the examples we see. Like they do cardio every day and they train every day, or they try to overtrain or outtrain their and follow like a really low calorie diet because they think that's going to lead to a positive result. But they don't understand how smart the body is. The body just wants to reach homeostasis, which is to be comfortable and happy. So it slows the thyroid down so that and metabolic rate down with it, so that it doesn't need to, burn fat off. And I mean, that's why traditionally people will slowly reduce calories throughout a diet so that it keeps burning fat for fuel, right? But your metabolic rate will slow down eventually as well. And that's where during a diet phase, the coach will introduce diet breaks where they put calories right back up to maintenance for a phase. But I know you're talking about overall slowing of metabolism. That's when people eat or undereat, so to speak, just for too long, like chronically.
Yeah, yeah.
And like a whole host of things happen with that. Like I mentioned before, nutrient deficiency is a huge one. So if your body's deficient in any nutrients, it immediately has like a domino effect on your hormones and your health, generally speaking. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but there's no disease, every single disease known to man is due to nutritional deficiency as like a baseline thing.
I don't even think I've heard that.
Yeah.
I like
It's been studied and researched and it's proven, but not promoted heavily for obvious reason because, pharmaceutical companies and so on and so forth. But yeah, most people that they don't have a period in their lifestyle. Let's call it their lifestyle where the calories are sufficient enough to keep their metabolic rate up.
Yeah, yeah.
So what leads to a slow metabolic rate is people trying to diet for too long or all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even having one cheat meal a week, they'll tell me, "Oh no, I have a splurge once a week." That's not actually enough.
Yeah.
So in most of the cases, when I get a client that's like you say, comes to me with a slow metabolic rate, and yourself as well, I'll work on progressively pushing their calories up, and I might not double their calories straight away because it's not smart. Like it'll lead to a host of issues. But two things: I reduce their output if they're training too much,
Yeah.
and increase their food strategically, and usually more often than not from carbohydrates.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen Leslie. Leslie's like shaking her head. The first time I met her, maybe a little bit of an overtrainer. And I told her one day, just go for a walk. Just go for a walk. She's like, what?
Yeah.
What? Yeah. And it was the same thing. So as soon as she introduced more rest, got better results. And even just using myself as an example, because I didn't quite realize how much I was under eating when I came to you and was just like, yeah, like, let's set a goal, let's do a photo shoot, let's do this. And it wasn't until I started looking at it because I thought, and, I was feeling a little bit tired, like sort of feeling like I was, out of juice, following something that I thought actually was like a lot, and it wasn't really. And as soon as you increased mine, all the things changed. So I had more energy. I was definitely way more horny. And all these girls can relate to this of late. So like, yeah, my libido went up, just my energy for life, my sleep was better, like everything just transformed literally from increasing my food.
And like you'll just from a logical perspective, if you're feeling the way you were prior, and I made you train and wanted you to hit personal bests each week or progress your lifts each week with quality, you're not going to be able to do that very easily.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas if you're feeling great, you're probably more likely going to improve your training just by default.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what's going to lead to transformation physically. Like, you're not going to build muscle mass by lifting the same weights all the time or lifting poorly all the time. So on that point with training, when we talked about overtraining, it's quality of training that matters more than quantity.
Yeah.
And it's easy to just train every day flat out and lift the same weights and just run more. That's easy. It's not hard. But training with quality and improving the quality of your lifts and contraction of your muscle and ensuring the biochemical process is in check, that's what leads to that transformation, because you get the work done and then you go home and rest and recover. there's no more stress after that.
Yeah, yeah. And while we're talking about rest and recovery, how important is that how important is that part when trying to get results for your body?
Like, it's priority, absolute priority.
Yeah.
Like and what will dictate that is if you're not improving in the gym or you feel crap all the time, you're not recovering enough or you're not resting enough. So, sometimes if I'm training 5 days a week and I'm not improving, I'll reduce that to 4 days a week, as counterintuitive as that sounds, because I've added a whole rest day, but my body's now in a place to rest more to perform better.
Yeah, yeah.
So, prioritizing sleep, and sleep's always a huge thing. Like, the quality of your sleep that's when your majority of your recovery takes place, obviously. Growth hormone is at its highest. I always try and address that head on if somebody tells me that their sleep's no good.
Yeah. Yeah.
From day
one. And it all intertwines, hey? So it's like you're under eating and your body's starving and then you're hungry. Yep. It makes it way harder to sleep because your body's just constantly trying to tell you that it needs more than what you're giving it. So therefore you can't get a deep sleep. Therefore it fucks up your rest and recovery. You can't train well, and then it's just this whole cycle.
Absolute domino effect. And one of the things I'll tell you, I've got a good story for you. When I was chronically low carb dieting I think I did it from 22 to 28. I ate low carbs the whole time, trying to grow muscle and get leaner. And I didn't change at all, right? And I was coaching at this time too, but I was just stuck in a one size method, like from a coach I was following too closely. And I tried every sleep protocol supplement wise I could get my hands on to improve my sleep, right?
Yeah.
And what changed was adding carbohydrates to my diet, because I didn't realize I was severely serotonin deficient. And people may be familiar with that hormone. It's a happy hormone, basically. So when somebody has trouble sleeping, I'll have a look at their diet, and depending, most of the time they're under eating, like we said, they don't have any carbs usually at all ever. I'll give them like a healthy amount at dinner. Immediately sleep's improved. I've got a girl that I'm working with right now, exact same case. She's a Pilates instructor. Never sleeps. Her thing is, I never sleep well. I never have. So she thought it's normal.
Yeah.
Right. When I gave her more food, I asked her just this week, how's your sleep? She's like, oh my God, I don't have headaches anymore. And I sleep every night. Whereas she used to always have headaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, to me, it's just so simple. Like, so just eat more basically and everything is fixed, right? I mean, obviously there's a ceiling and a limit.
I love that. Yeah.
But yeah.
And can we run through like carbohydrates, for example? So why carbohydrates? And what does that do to the body? And how does that help? So in instances we're talking about, like, what is it that the carbohydrate does?
Well, from a carbohydrate, it's basically an energy nutrient. Okay, so fats and carbs are energy nutrients. And the body's preference is to use carbohydrates for energy during intense activity. So if you want to weight train, to develop muscle, to look better, that's your primary fuel source, because your body's going to convert that to glucose, to, carbs to glucose. If you don't have sufficient carbohydrates in your diet, your body searches and it does what's called gluconeogenesis to the protein that you eat, right? And if you don't eat enough protein or enough carbohydrates, you'll eventually burn muscle to get that glucose to fuel your weight training.
AKA, you're still looking the same after 8 years of training.
Pretty much, yeah. You'll just look the same, but you'll constantly be burning through the protein you're eating, right? And maybe even the muscle that you have. So you might get weaker from it all. It also fuels your thyroid. It helps your metabolism pick up a hell of a lot. And a good saying I've heard from a coach before is having like a bolus dose of carbohydrates, like throwing fuel on a fire.
Yeah.
To pick up the metabolic rate as well.
Yeah, yeah. And what about, sorry, you keep going?
I was just about to say, like, you store glucose in your muscles, preferentially. You don't turn it to fat very easily if you're training regularly. So a lot of people have this thing of they're carb phobic because they don't want to get fat from carbs, right? If you're training really hard regularly, it's almost impossible just to get fat from carbs.
Yeah.
So what dictates that is whether you're in a surplus of calories or a deficit of calories, right? So if you're burning more than you're ingesting, you simply can't get fat from carbs. It doesn't make any sense. It defeats the laws of thermodynamics.
Yeah, yeah.
And once that penny dropped with me, after being a carb phobe, I got stronger and bigger, and I started competing as a bodybuilder when I was 30.
Yeah.
after wasting my 20s, trying to be a bodybuilder. It's quite funny.
But it was vital so that you could have all that experience to then help everyone now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I definitely know when I upped my carbohydrate, well, I'm loving the thick life at the moment. So I'm just like more. And it's made a huge difference, made a huge difference after a month, let alone like a couple of months. So I wanted to then ask about, so, obviously there's so if you're not eating carbohydrates and maybe you've got more of a high fat diet and protein and that kind of thing. So what about, for example, like keto people or, that use fat as their energy source?
All right. So
what are your thoughts on that?
I don't have a problem with that, but from experience, it only lasts for a phase. It only lasts for a period. And when I say that is if I get someone with their blood work, I assess their blood work, or I have a feeling they are insulin resistant, what I mean by that is they basically don't process carbs for energy efficiently. So I was mentioning before that's your primary fuel source when you weight training, right?
Yeah.
Some people, though, will be resistant to the hormone insulin, which your body releases when your blood sugar is high, okay?
Yeah.
And without making it complicated it too much, basically you don't use the carbs for energy efficiently and it turns to fat easily.
Yeah. So this is like sometimes when people, like when women will be like, oh my God, I just eat a bowl of carbs and I fucking feel like I blow up.
Right.
They might be somebody in that position.
Yeah, spot on. Or they get really tired from carbs. They don't have the energy to train from it, right?
Yeah.
The body's not converting it to energy very efficiently, right?
Yeah.
So I used to use my better judgment, but these days I get people to get blood work ideally. And there's a blood marker called HbA1c, which is your average insulin level, basically. It tells you how well you're using carbohydrate for energy.
Yeah.
And those people, if that number is really high, they will actually respond better to a low carb, high fat diet for a phase. When I say a phase, eventually your insulin sensitivity is going to improve. And when it does improve, you want to add carbs back into the diet, even if they haven't gone lean yet.
Yeah.
Because their body's ready to use the carbs for fuel.
Yeah. And so that will help them speed up their metabolic rate.
Spot on. Right. Whereas people with the ketogenic diet, I mean, it's not going to slow your metabolism down from having zero carbs, because what they do is they have excessive amounts of fat to keep the calories up.
Yeah.
But I haven't met that many people who process fat for fuel efficiently, really.
Yeah, me
especially not for body composition's their goal.
Yeah.
It's gotten a very, for some reason, good reputation in that world, but I've never experienced it ever.
Yeah.
And
I know a couple of like belief systems and things that like a lot of my clients have been through, so that will answer like a lot of questions for a couple of them. I did want to talk about, like, while we're on like still on metabolic rate, carbohydrates and all of that. Yeah. So one of the things that I really see all the time is like someone will have like a blowout meal, or they might have a blowout weekend, and the carry-on effect of that. So it's kind of like they have one meal and they feel like they've fucked up their whole diet, or they've fucked up all of this, and then it sort of carries on. I want to talk about the difference between like 1 day to like 3 days and the actual damage, like that versus that. Does that make sense? So like 1 day worth of not eating well, and then actually 3 days worth because you got so frustrated at the 1 day and you just let it carry on. I know a lot of it is a mentality thing, so it's just kind of like let that meal go, just shift it. But I just want to talk about it more from like, you're trying to train your body to do one thing, and then you're spending half your week confusing it with something else.
Yeah, and I know what you mean. What I look at is what led to that blowout.
Yeah.
So obviously, if the person's hunger hormones are out of whack, like leptin and ghrelin, leading into that 1 day blowout, and they continue on. This is what you're talking about. It's classic post-contest dieting.
Yeah.
A coach will severely restrict their client, like tremendously, like far too bad, into the diet. Into the show, and then give them no plan after the show. Literally leave them high and dry. I've seen it a lot. Okay, and we know someone at the gym. If I make mention of her name, you'll be like, oh my god, yeah, her. Like she looked the best she ever has, and then all of a sudden she regressed past where she started, right? And it was purely because of that lack of post-contest plan.
Yeah.
So if the diet's set up intelligently, um, giving them like a week off or a cheat meal should be sufficient because they know that the next week they're going to get another one, right? So they won't continue that blowout.
Yeah. Yeah.
So more than likely, it's the overall diet that leads to that blowout.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like the 1 day is fine; it's not going to negatively impact you at all. But the 3 days continuing on obviously will put you in a surplus over the course of the 7 days, maybe,
Yeah.
or maybe not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what I've heard this from a good coach. Actually, his name is John Berardi. He was a creator of it's really precision nutrition. Have you heard of that course?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So he says what matters over the course of like in your diet is the course over 7 days,
Yeah.
not that 1 day.
Yeah. And what
You know what I
about
mean?
if like you so I'm going to jump straight into something else now. So that's awesome and it totally makes sense. And yeah, it's like zoom out on the whole thing as opposed to
Yeah,
get
very
super
much.
up on the actual detail.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Because those days is really not irrelevant, but irrelevant in sense. Like I always wonder, well, why? Why would they have done that, right?
oh,
Obviously, if there's more in-depth reasoning, like emotional eating,
yeah.
then you have to deal with the reason why they were emotionally eating, right? It has nothing to do with their diet and stuff, like if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
And yeah, oh, totally. And it's just even great exploring all of this because sometimes we get so hung up on, oh my God, it was the one meal or I shouldn't have done this or I shouldn't have done that. But sometimes the picture is so much bigger, but just we're not educated or aware that it could be the hormones, that it could be under eating for the whole of 12 months. And that's the reason why you can't control your hunger and all of this. So it's just, yeah, broadening education and awareness around this as well. And then this leads me into, and I'm really excited. Well, I'm pumped to talk about this because I have this conversation with nearly every woman that I meet. So it's like following a food plan and keeping it really simple and basic versus wanting variety because they're bored.
Yeah.
And this is something that I see all the time. And like, I can understand it from both sides, although, you know, because I think I really started out at I want variety. This is boring. I'm eating the same thing every day.
Yeah.
And I've really swung the other way to now I prefer that because it takes the thinking out of it. Then when I have a cheat meal, I just go crazy. And then, you know, I just get back to the plan. It's less thinking for me.
I'm wired exactly the same way. I'm an all or nothing person. So if I can't do anything half-assed. I have to do it properly and really well, or it doesn't sit right with me. So it's the same with the cheat meal. If I'm going to do a cheat meal, I'm going to go all out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have a snack ever.
And can we just on that
topic,
can we just like get an insight to what your cheat meal might be?
Well, it's pretty hefty when I'm in season. So during the contest time,
yeah,
it could be like a whole large pizza, 6 cookies, ice cream would usually be in there, a couple of chocolate bars easily, and it's been worse than that. But the deeper I get, like the leaner I get, the more I can eat without it negatively impacting me at all.
Yeah, and why is that? Because that also is something that I didn't write down, but I would like to talk about it. Because the leaner that you are, you know, the more that you can get away with.
Yeah, because you're basically more depleted. You're depleted into that. You're getting more and more depleted leading up to your cheat meal. So your body soaks it up. And your metabolic rate rises so rapidly that you gain no weight from it.
Yeah.
I've lost weight after a cheat meal.
And would you say that apply? I have too, and it's awesome. Would you say that also applies to like, you know, for example, like somebody who is really overweight, who is on a mission to lose weight that, you know, say they were staying at like 120 kilos and then they started getting leaner, that then they could actually eat more food, or maybe they could get away with a few more cheat meals a week and it wouldn't have as much of a difference?
Yeah, so it depends on the person. Like I always pay attention to their biofeedback, so how they're feeling during the course of the diet.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So if they're feeling fine, I won't give them a cheat meal for the sake of it. So there's two reasons for cheat meals.
Yes.
Physiological and psychological. All right, that's what the markers I use. I used to traditionally give them a cheat meal on the regular, but sometimes I found it negatively impact them.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it actually ties back into what you were saying about meal plans, like eating clean versus having more variety.
Yeah.
One thing I've seen as an issue with people having too much variety is that they keep cravings up.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. So if I give them that, if it fits your macros type of approach, where they have some sugary stuff or whatever to meet their carbohydrate intake, for example, they're constantly craving shitty food and they feel like crap over the course of the week more than they would otherwise.
Yeah. I found for myself personally, um, because before like we started, I was just doing a bit more of a whatever kind of meal eating,
Yep.
coping with ISO pandemic version of something. And yeah, I noticed that like when it was more freestyle, I don't know, I actually got bored going that way because it was like, damn, I've got to think of more food. Like, what should I have? And then as I go through just, my regimen eating, I look forward to, oh God, like some oysters and calamari, like I did for my birthday. And then I was like, and some salt and vinegar popcorn, like, cause that's my favorite.
Well, I
You
think
know?
you'll agree
And
with
then
me
you
on
just
this,
look forward to it.
right? So you agree with me on this, right? It makes the like the good food. Say we'll call it good food only because it's like cheap food and happy food, whatnot, right?
Yeah.
And it increases our appreciation for that when we do get to eat it.
Yeah. And it's like, it tastes different.
Yeah.
Like for me now, I lose the taste of that, all that food. I don't know. It's just like too many options, too many different things. It's like, well, if I can eat it all the time, what makes it special when I eat it then?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Right.
yeah.
So, yeah, I completely agree with you. And that's why I operate the same way. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not against if it fits your macros entirely, like with good food, that is. If that's the only way I can get someone compliant long term, I will run with that.
Yeah.
But more often than not, I've seen better results of what you're doing and what I do long term.
Yeah. And also, on there, if it fits your macros as well, I find that like if you've got a client who maybe is not so much, they're just maybe more results orientated as opposed to actually coming in and getting a full education and an awareness. So one of the things like you and I always love when our clients are just, they're learning and they're educated. So when they finish with you, you're just like, go get it, call me if you lose your shit kind of thing. Yeah. So, when and I just lost my train of thought there. With client with the if it fits your macros. So like the thinking power that goes into that as well. Also, they've got to have a base knowledge understanding of like macros, carbohydrate, proteins, what amounts they need to hit. Then if they don't have education on food, they've then got to go like get MyFitnessPal, figure that out, work it out. And one of my clients, not last week, the week before, she like hadn't used MyFitnessPal before and pretty much had a mental breakdown about trying to figure out what food she could have instead of what foods, because she had to like divide it. She could only find things in ounces and all of this. And so she just messaged me bawling her eyes out like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, cool. So can we just go basic for a couple of weeks?
So exactly on that point, I know, you're going to probably tell me what I'm going to say now as well. Sorry to cut you off.
No, go.
When I've seen someone add MyFitnessPal to their regime, it's like very common now. Obviously, it helps. It's a good tool. It helps people, but I've only seen it add stress.
Yeah.
And like, what's the point in that? I'd rather just give someone a plan. Say, here's the meals. You've got 3 options.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As opposed to use MyFitnessPal and work out what foods hit your calories or macros, and then they'll send me a million messages asking me about all sorts of different foods that they could potentially eat. Right?
Yeah.
Which is okay as well, but ultimately it again adds to their stress, and they don't know whether they tolerate the food well. Then they'll eat it and say, oh, look, I don't even like it. You know what I mean? And usually 9 times out of 10 comes around full circle to just eating something a bit more basic with variety of spices, some salsa, and you got a lot of room to move there.
Yeah. Even just like changing up your meats can make a big difference when you're following something.
Absolutely. How you cook the meat, like I've just got an air fryer recently, right? So I've been cooking in an air fryer.
Yeah.
And I cook fish. This sounds like as boring as it sounds. I cook cod in an air fryer, and it's unreal. My daughters eat my food, and they're 3 and 6. So I make them fish in an air fryer, and they just love it. They think it's like so tasty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
that's awesome.
So yeah, it doesn't need to be that fancy, really. But yeah, like you said, just variety.
Yeah. And I think it's a bit of a thing. Like I personally, this is pretty funny. I just bought a Thermomix. and I can't wait to get it. I mostly just want to make salads and juices in it, like, which sounds crazy that I would buy Thermomix for that, but I've been thinking about it for 10 years, no joke. That's how long I've been saying it. So it's a huge like marker for me to buy one. And I put a post up just getting everyone to give me their favorite recipes. And then like all these recipes are coming through and I'm just like, whoa, there is so much in there and so much of that. And it's just like, man, like, you know, everyone's just so into, like, everyone's trying to get, lots of people are trying to get results, and then they're making all these crazy recipes and crazy things. And it's like the effort that will go into them work that out. Whereas as opposed to then on a Sunday, you just have a Sunday day where you make some cool stuff and try some new things and you just enjoy it then. But they're like, women are trying to do this every single day. And then not only are they trying to do that, my clients or my women who have mamas who have children, they're like trying to get them, then they're trying to do their business, then they're trying to do this on top of trying to figure out food that'll go in the, and then it, like you said, just becomes this whole big stress.
It's so tiring. And like, you know, I'm as busy as you are. I'd just rather prep my meals for the night before for the next day, grab them and eat them. And I can make it, like I said, I make an effort with the foods I eat. I don't eat chicken, broccoli, and rice. Like I might put coriander and some ham through my rice, for example, and have broccolini instead. You know, and my chicken will be chicken strips, and it's always got like some nice spices through it, like Jamaican jerk chicken spice, for example. It's like fantastic. And if I cook that on a Weber, it's flame grilled. It's tasty. Like it's really nice. But you're right. Like I couldn't think of how hard it would be like to work out different recipes every day. Like it's too tiring.
Yeah. And we're in the fitness industry.
Yeah, well, exactly right. You know, I know how to calculate macros of all different foods. I've like just become accustomed to doing that. A good friend of mine created software for his, created an online nutrition software. It's called iNutrition Pro. All right. So he designed it. And the whole purpose of it was to have a meal plan for your client, but in it then have a drop-down list of different foods that you could choose from, right?
Yeah.
And regardless of what food you pick, it would automatically adjust the portion size based on the macros that he'd selected for you.
Right. Okay.
Does it make sense? Because different foods have different amounts of different.
Yeah.
Right? And he had 3 different databases in their food with 20,000 different foods.
Oh my God.
I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah.
So he gave me a copy and said, here, use it with your clients. He gave it to me for free. 0 clients used it. Because they're like, I can't decide. I don't know what to choose.
It's like that thing with not enough options, too many options.
Yeah. And like this gave them the amounts in there, yeah? So they didn't have to use MyFitnessPal. Like MyFitnessPal was integrated into it.
Yeah.
So it's as fancy and beautiful as it sounded.
Yeah.
It was overwhelming for everyone.
Yeah. The simpler it is, the easier it can be, especially at the start until you get in the swing of things. And the other thing just on this topic that I lastly want to cover off was like results, and just people expecting, you know, results real quick. When you're working with a client and there's, you know, they clean up their diet, what kind of results would you expect? And I know this is really challenging to answer this question, because if someone asked me that, I also would be like, well, it depends on the person, But, you know, I don't know. I think it's a bit of a thing through social media and all that, like, you know, you change your diet, like you get results quick. And I think that's why people opt a lot for reduce the calories, because they notice an instant difference, but actually it's like they're doing more damage than good. By reducing it instead of just being patient for those results.
Well, like you said, if they come to you and they have a slow metabolism, right?
Yeah.
And they reduce their calories to something very low, they'll start losing weight, so they get happy.
Yeah.
And they start posting on social media about how lean they're getting, how happy they are, right? And then they say they reach their goal in the 12 weeks or 8 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And they finish on 600 calories, but they don't tell anyone that.
Yeah.
Right. And then after that, like I said before, where do you go from there? Like there's no build up, there's a blowout afterward, right?
Yeah.
But again, back to the timeline, your original question is I always seek history first. So depending on what they were doing prior.
Yeah.
And again, to reiterate what you said, most of the clients that come to see me have done like metabolic damage. their body's metabolically stressed.
Yeah.
So I'm not too afraid these days to tell someone, give it a year.
Yeah.
If you really want to be serious about this and make it a consistent part of your life, rather than a short-term thing where you got in shape for like a stint.
Yeah.
Why not get in shape, teach your body to be happy and healthy and efficient in nutrients and perform really well. And there's a way to maintain that lifestyle. And I didn't touch upon this, but the way I like to eat, and this is how I do your diet, is a cyclic approach, right?
Yeah.
So we cycle nutrients throughout the course of the week. So there's some lower days, medium days, and high days. And, you know, I know it sounds like from a maintenance point of view, it can be overwhelming, but it's not really. Like your low days, your non-training days, you just simply eat less carbs, right?
Yeah. It pretty much took me 2 weeks to get into the hang of it properly.
I mean, I don't have anyone, like depends on the person, but not usually if the person's really serious about, you know, getting in shape and staying it, a cyclic approach is not a big deal. Like there's the high days where you just got to add more carbs to your plan. You look at the plan the night before you make your meals. Oh, okay, just going to have 50 more grams in this and this meal, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a very good way to maintain long-term because those high days are there to refill glycogen. So you don't drop into that deficit throughout the 7 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So once we get them there, they can maintain that because a lot of people ask me, how do you maintain it after that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I explain you can have more cheat meals and more refeeds more regularly.
Yeah.
And everything balances out.
Yeah. And it's it's about changing, like knowing their history as well, and then understanding the metabolic damage too, so that then they can understand that it needs to be a lifestyle thing as opposed to it just being a short fix. And it's just, you know, so amazing how many minds just default back to, oh, I'll just cut out this because then, you know, I'll instantly feel like I'll just cut out that. But actually they don't realize that they're doing the opposite of what they're trying to attain at the time. Yeah. And this is why I absolutely love talking to you about this.
I get this a lot. Like a lot of people will tell me, no, I don't do carbs. It doesn't work for me. And I'm like, based on what? What makes you think that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they won't even have an answer. They'll just be like, don't you have to cut out the carbos to lose weight?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like, well, how much I see and hear that. Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, like, yes and no. Like, I'm not going to say I don't reduce calories from carbohydrates when I try to get lean. But, you know, not
But you've also built them up.
Yeah, correct. Like, you know, my high days are 900 carbs, 900 grams of carbs.
And what is that? You say 900 grams of carbs. Like, what's that equivalent to? In my mind, I think it's like 7 cups of white rice, maybe, or 8.
No, well, 1 cup of white rice is about 40 grams of carbs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
It's like 25 cups of rice a day.
I shouldn't try with the maths, but so how many? 25. Yeah. So let's reiterate to everyone on here, 25 grams of carbs is a high day version of carbohydrates.
Yeah, and like the more muscle. So, you know, we're talking about metabolic rate a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of girls, like I said, I use that language with girls or females more than muscle mass. Guys, I'll talk about muscle more often than not because they go hand in hand. Building muscle and building metabolism goes hand in hand. So the more muscle your body can hold, the faster your metabolism will be by default. Because having muscle requires more food just to maintain that. You know what I mean? So it ticks all boxes because then you're hungry, your appetite's up to handle the food, you digested well, your performance is good, all your nutrients are taken care of, like so you have enough vitamins and minerals from the high calorie intake. And then like if you want to lean out, you can cut it down a bit, right? So girls don't realize how much, let me rephrase that. Girls don't realize how little muscle they have until they drop all their body fat.
Yeah.
And like, you never really do that, right? No girls really do that. But everyone's afraid of muscle. So they think, oh, you know, I don't want to get too big and too bulky. You can't get too big and too bulky. It's like every guy tries for years to get too big and too bulky. Do you know what I mean? And girls don't even have the hormones set up for that.
Yeah, yeah.
So like it's an effort. You know what I'm talking about. Like it's an absolute effort to try and build muscle.
I was saying this. I've said this actually the last couple of weeks, and I'm like, I thought like losing weight was challenging, like back in the day, and even you know when I competed, like that was challenge. Oh, it wasn't. I don't know. It was challenging then at the time. but now, like, purposely and intentionally, like, building my muscle mass, like, yeah, this is way more challenging, way harder to build the muscle mass. And, you know, missing a meal, or like, you know, I had a week the other week that was like off. I noticed so much of a difference simply just by not being able to eat enough.
Yep.
My training, like how I felt, like everything was affected. And I just, yeah, I've had the same conversation. It's like, you think losing weight is hard? Fuck, putting it on is hard.
And that's what everyone's goal should be. Like, if they want to get lean, it's easy for us as coaches to see where they're at. But more often than not, they need to work on building muscle. If they want to get toned, they need muscle to be toned, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about tons of muscle, just enough that they can see, like, you know, and even that takes a lot of effort and a lot of food. But like I said, thankfully that also takes care of our metabolic rate issue that we see with most people.
Yeah. And it takes so much consistency as well.
Absolutely.
Which is why finding something that's going to suit your lifestyle is going to be mega important.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I want to talk about cortisol for a second, and like how having high cortisol levels can really fuck you up. And
yeah.
So cortisol, like basically stress hormone, everyone that's listening and watching. Yeah. And just sort of like how detrimental, I guess, that is to the body.
Well, it's terrible. I mean, for several reasons. One of the main reasons, it influences your digestion, your ability to digest nutrients efficiently.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people will notice that when they get really stressed, they feel it in their gut.
Yeah.
They actually feel the stress in their body accumulating.
Like, yes.
Through their tummy, right? And that's because it's directly influencing your gut. Your brain chemicals are made in your gut. So whatever's stressing you out is messing with everything, right? And obviously that's also why a lot of people say, when I'm stressed, I'm not hungry, I don't eat, I lose my appetite.
Yeah.
Usually when people have a stressful period in their lives because something detrimental has really happened, or something detrimental has really happened, they don't have an appetite because of the stress. And, you know, you think, oh, that's good, I don't get to eat food, but not at all, because everything slows down, shuts down. And the worst thing that happens, actually, it's called cortisol insulin seesaw. Cortisol raises your blood sugar as well, unfortunately. So back to our initial point about carbs being used for energy efficiently, if stress is high, that's not going to be happening.
Yeah.
You won't be burning carbs for energy at that time.
What will you be doing instead?
It'll turn to fat. It'll turn to fat more efficiently or more easily, because it's not going to be used by the muscle for fuel.
Yeah.
So this is another thing where overtraining comes into play. If excessive cortisol's around, you're screwing your metabolic, you'll see insulin sensitivity as well.
Yeah.
And I saw the power of this, right? I know I keep using this as an example, but when I was competing, so during contest time, guys, with bodybuilders, what they do is they deplete into a show, and then they carb load the days prior to the show to fill out their muscles. Because like I say, you store carbohydrates in your muscle. When you're really lean, you can see that storage. So your muscle gets harder and fuller and you look tighter. And one thing my coach and I use is blood sugar, blood glucose testing. The reason why I do that is because every meal I eat with a carb, during the carb up, if that mark or that number is still low, it means I've still got room to eat more carbs in the meal coming next. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas if I was at home in an environment, I just started my carb up and my kids stressed me out, and that number went up really high. So my blood sugar shot up just from stress, like because of my kids, not because I was eating a lot.
Yeah.
And when I sent it to him, he's like, this is only a second meal. It shouldn't be this high. And he asked me, what are you doing? Where are you? Yeah. And I said, oh, I'm at home. My kids are stressing me out. He's like, oh shit, that's why. So I literally removed myself from that environment. Yeah. And my blood sugar dropped because stress dropped.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever seen it so like visual, like based on a number and a test via blood work, you know, in real time.
Yeah. And what's really interesting about that story, actually, like that's like, you're like way down on body fat. Like the only focus you have in life is your competition, like at that time.
Correct.
Right. So that's not even to include all the other things that go on in life. So going to work 9 to 5 or doing some other job. Then on top of that, like, I don't know, relationship stress, children's stress, and then money stress. And then this kind of stress, and then overeating, undereating, then this, and then trying to work out all your macros every day, like go add all of that stress. Like it's just all those little, I'll say 1%ers, but all those elements,
it's spot on, yeah.
They just add up so much. And if that makes such a difference on a smaller scale, you can imagine how much of a shitstorm goes on on a larger scale when people don't put out their shit.
So like lifestyle changes to help you manage that is so crucial. Like, you know what I mean? I know a lot of people say it's easier said than done. Sorry. You know, things like meditation, but managing your stress based on what's important to you as well. Like, I think it's a big thing, you know?
Yeah.
My wife's the best example of this. She'll stress over everything and anything at the drop of a hat. And I just have to talk her out of it. Like I say, why is that so important right now?
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, it's not important right now.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. But, you know, there's a lot of ways and methods I think people need to employ to manage cortisol better.
Yeah.
And I know for me, when I got educated on how much it influenced you, just that, right, told my brain, because I'm very driven by logic, to just not give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
So I literally just stopped caring about anything. I stopped stressing about everything. Arguably too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So even if there's an issue, I'm like, oh yeah, that's fine. We'll get over it. Even if it's a big issue.
Yeah.
I got good at switching off to it, which is, you know, not always great.
Because the truth of the matter is, and this is interesting, the truth of the matter is that it will resolve itself anyway. And honestly, the stress is amplified by the narrative that you put around it, which is the story that you apply to it. So, you know, when you're caught up in the emotion of things or the story of it, which is heightening your stress. And now, guys, imagine as well that you're under eating. So your hormones that are like you're telling yourself not to eat, then you've got like hunger hormones that are going insane and you're eating all this chocolate plus, and so your brain's obviously not functioning properly. And then you're trying to de-stress yourself in an environment where mentally you actually physically cannot do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not, can you see how like all of it is just like this? It's just like a fucking huge spiderweb mess. But you can actually, and it comes back down, I wrote down that saying actually, disease comes down to, you know, a baseline nutrition. Because if you can sort that out, I'm not saying it's the answer to everything, but if you can actually just work on that element, it will literally, from what we've been talking about, solve a lot of issues, like physically, mentally, emotionally, because your brain will be able to function properly, your stress levels down, and then your body can start operating from a place of balance as opposed to it being so out of whack.
There's I know we didn't talk about supplements at all today, but once someone's diet's in check, and like I used to be very, which is, you know, we met at a biosignature course, right?
Yeah.
I used to make majority of my money from selling supplements when I was a younger trainer, because the first thing I would do is sell people supplements before I even did their diet properly or coach them in nutrition, to be honest. But, you know, I didn't know any better at the time. And I'll talk about supplements now anyway, but that's one thing I employ heavily in during a diet, or I get someone who's heavily has a very stressful lifestyle. So I've got a client right now. She manages like an RTO, a training, like an company that teaches courses.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to take over. She's got like 80 staff.
Yeah.
So I train her via Zoom at the moment, and whenever I see her, she's just like out of control, stressed, right? And I implemented a supplement to her, like some natural herbs to help reduce that. And I got something interesting. Even if it was a placebo effect and it did de-stress her, I'd take that.
Yeah.
But I do believe in this particular supplement. One of the main ingredients is, I think, phosphatidylserine. Okay. There's lots of calming agents, and everyone's physiology will respond differently depending on the type of supplement, right? But these things that people want to take late in the day to wind down a bit, yeah. But you know, obviously, lifestyle's a big thing that you need to manage first and foremost.
Yeah. What would you say are the most crucial vitamins or supplements for a woman to take? Because I know we've had the conversation a few times.
B vitamins is one.
Yeah.
Because you lose a lot of B vitamins.
Why B vitamins?
Because you lose a lot through your period every month.
Yeah.
And it's really important for energy production. So a lot of girls are like, oh, I'm really low on energy. And 9 times out of 10, the B12s and the other B vitamins are very deficient.
Yeah. And did you say another supplement before I cut you off? Sorry.
Well, it depends. Iron's usually a big one for a lot of girls.
Yeah.
Similar reason.
Yeah.
Blood work will usually dictate what people need in most cases, okay? Really.
Yeah.
What else? I mean, this is not only for women, right? This is very general. Vitamin D.
Yeah.
9 times.
Especially at the moment.
Say again?
Especially at the moment when everyone's locked inside.
Yeah, I've never met anyone who get their blood work done and then be efficient in vitamin D.
Yeah.
Everyone's efficient in vitamin D from my experience anyway.
Yeah.
And that every tissue in your body has a receptor site for vitamin D, so it's crucial that you have enough in your body. And I mean, even GPs have come around to learn that.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of the blood markers they'll request for you without you asking them for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Zinc and magnesium in most cases, because they're quite synergistic mineral. Like zinc is a very synergistic mineral to the body. Yeah. Magnesium as well. There's lots of different magnesiums. Yeah. But it's one of a very comprehensive formula. There's different chelates, and the reason why there's different ones is because different areas of the body store different types of magnesium.
Yeah.
Right, and like it's a very interesting question when you ask me what supplements, because I could keep going on and justify why.
I know, and I've got like 10 coming to my mind, and I'm like, and there's also this one and this one and this one, but yeah.
But the ones I've mentioned so far are very general that everyone should be on. Like if my mom asks me what supplements to take, I'll tell her these ones.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a good magnesium, zinc, vitamin D, B vitamins, B complex, for example.
Yeah.
There's some other good bang for buck ones. I'm really like bang for buck products. Okay, so supplements that people will take that have a really huge synergistic effect on everything in the body. And glutamine is one of them. The amino acid glutamine. I've spoken to you about that before. Like it's an amino acid you take that's crucial to heal the gut lining.
Yeah.
Everyone knows about how amazing
people are too. Like
right. So it's like the go-to thing to heal a leaky gut's glutamine.
Yeah.
If you're sick, glutamine, because your immune system's housed in your gut.
Yeah.
So I always take glutamine every day.
Amazing. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we pretty much like in a roundabout way covered everything plus like 10,000 more topics, which is amazing. I just wanted to, because I know it is 2 o'clock. Do you have a couple of minutes if there are any questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. All right. So I know in the chat box. So guys, let's just, if you've got a question, feel free just to unmute yourself. I'm just going to read Belinda's first. You obviously don't start taking supplements. You need to have a blood test first. Is that right? So the basic ones, Belinda, that he spoke about, like vitamin B, magnesium, zinc, the glutamine, like you can take them now.
Vitamin D as well.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So you can't if you've already got enough vitamin D, B or whatever, you can't overdo it.
You can, but you'd have to take a lot to overdo it.
Okay.
And one of the first signs that you have excessive amounts of any vitamin is you'll get loose stools.
Okay.
Right? And you can test that out individually, obviously, like using the process of elimination. And I've experienced this firsthand without to get too visual, if you like.
They're fine. They're totally fine.
Well, they're your clients, so I imagine they would be conditioned to this.
They know all about my shit.
Well, several years ago, this is before I was a coach, actually. This is when I first learned about the importance of vitamin D. The coach I was following at the time advised us to take 30,000 IU. And I don't know if you guys know how much that is, right? But if these days you go to the doctor, they'll tell you to take 1,000 IU a week. And I took 30,000 IU a day. And my stools were oily. I had like oily diarrhea, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Until like 2 days later, the penny dropped, and I was like, oh, maybe it's like this, like, no pun intended, the shitload of vitamin D oily tablets I'm taking. Okay, so that's one thing. And like magnesium is really common to cause loose stools as well. If you take excessive amounts of magnesium, I've been told. But it's actually one of the ways we got taught to dose supplements when I studied like forms of functional nutrition without blood work. And I know I think this is a very poor way to coach people, but they said dose supplements based on like bowel tolerance, which is not smart in my opinion. Okay. And I think I should address something to you guys just so we're clear about this, because you might have this question. A lot of people say supplements do nothing. It's a waste of money and you just weed out. And there's tests to prove that you don't absorb this, like certain supplements, right? I question the integrity of the gut health of all the people in the test, in the study.
Yeah.
Because if your gut's not healthy, no, you're not going to absorb jack shit, not even nutrients in your food.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that you address as well. When you get a client, they've got severe digestive issues, they're probably not digesting their food even well. So a good diet's obviously step one.
Supplements would be a waste.
Yeah, correct. So, obviously step one, you want to cut out all the intolerances and anything causing inflammation, whether it's lifestyle, whatever the case is. Yeah, but that's, that'll dictate whether you absorb the products or not. And the quality of the supplements matter a lot, the brand. Yeah. There's only a handful of brands that are really good and a lot of them are crap.
Yeah. What brands do you recommend?
Metagenics, but that's practitioner only. Ethical Nutrients is a brand off the shelf from Chemist Warehouse. It's actually a brand that's manufactured and owned by Metagenics.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I found out from a friend who worked for Metagenics for a while.
Yeah.
So she used to get me some stuff, and then she told me, by the way, Ethical Nutrients is owned by us, and it's perhaps a low quality version, but still pretty good.
Yeah.
Bioceuticals, that's really easily accessible. That's behind the counter in the pharmacy. So if you go to the pharmacist, it's on the shelf behind them. They've got quite a wide range of supplements.
Yeah.
That's technically by practitioner only, but I've never had them not give me something.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome.
And there's Thorn, they're pretty good. And there's a few other brands as well that I can't remember some of the names of them now.
Oh, that's plenty anyway. That's awesome. Yeah. As long as I know you can get those brands at Chemist Warehouse. Everywhere's got a Chemist Warehouse, so that's sweet. Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? No, we're good. Awesome. I don't have any. I've asked all the questions that I would like to ask. Is there anything else left that you want to say, Triv, or you're good?
Nothing. Yeah, basically. I mean, like I said before, we could talk forever. This is a can of worms.
I'm impressed with how much we've covered. I'm like, great. Yeah. Awesome.
I think we've covered some key issues that people face, really.
Yeah, and I think just, working with women for so long and like yourself, you see the same common thread coming through, or the same common mentality, or the same, it's just over and over and over. So I'm pretty much going to want to interview you 10 more times, and let's just share this shit viral. Sure. Yeah. I'll talk to you about that at a later time. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And I'll talk to you later today anyway.
Right. Take care, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks everyone.
You.
Bye.
See ya.
Bye.